5th, 2025. We'll do roll call, please.
Mid-Rotonda.
Here.
Epstein. Here. Schroeder.
Here.
Tucker.
Here.
Dornberg here.
All right, let's go to announcements. Rick?
Yes, we would like to welcome everyone to the regularly scheduled board meeting. If you're attending online, please use raise your hand function. If you're here in person, please go to the podium so our speakers can pick up your voice.
Okay. Agenda item number 4 is the seating of our newly appointed and elected board members.
Good afternoon. First, I handed out my copy, but we were due to have an election for new board members on, I believe, November 4th. Because we only had the 3 incumbent directors that filled out the paperwork for that election. 83 days prior to the date that we would have that election, that gave Alpine County Board of Supervisors the authority to go ahead and confirm those directors as returning to their roles. Do you have it pulled up there? Yay, thank you. That was from Election Code section 10515, if anyone wants to look into it. But so we have Director Schroeder returning for his 2nd 4-year term, Director Epstein for his 4th 4-year term, and Director Dornbrook for his 11th 4-year term.
Right.
So thank you all very much.
Thanks, Sam, and congratulations, and thank you for your service, newly appointed board members. All right, let's move on to agenda item number 5, corrections to the agenda, the consent calendar.
I had a question about AP vouchers.
Okay.
Yeah, just what are the credit refunds on around page 28? There's quite a few of them.
Should we pull that out as a discussion topic?
Yeah, we should approve the rest in it.
Yep.
Okay.
So we'll move AP vouchers.
Right.
So that's 8B that we would pull out, right?
We pull it out of consent.
Okay. Any other corrections or questions on the consent calendar or the agenda? Okay. So 8B we will pull out for discussion. We'll move on to agenda item number 6. This is comments from the audience. This is an opportunity for our board members to the public to address the board on any short non-agenda items that are within our subject matter jurisdiction to the district. We can't take discussion or action on any items not listed on the agenda for the Brown Act. So I will open it up for public comment. I see 2 hands in the room, so I'll that one first. So please come up to the podium. Please your comment.
Hi, my name's Jay Dwyer. I'm a homeowner, a small business owner locally, and a full-time year-round resident. I always like to tell people that I love Kirkwood, and you're not getting rid of me. Place is really special to me, and for those of you that know me, you know that I've literally sacrificed everything for this place. A couple of years ago, I stood in this room in front of the board, and I told you guys don't break Kirkwood, right? When we have investments in this valley, from Vail all the way down, those investments should be important to us. My house has lost $80,000 in value in the last 12 months. I'm asking you to be mindful of all of your decisions. When you vote to raise our rates, when you vote to hire an outside contractor to come in and dig holes, you really need to think about the money that you're spending, because that's our money. I need you to be mindful of how you spend our money. I've worked for Mountain Utilities. I've had the electrical grid here and I've had the propane grid here almost kill me twice. I know how dangerous it is and how difficult it is. There are ways of doing it where we can focus on the most important aspect of this district, and that's the guys at the bottom, the guys that are out there in the ditches digging those holes. And we can give them opportunities for work and save money at the same time. And I will gladly sit down with any of you and talk to you about some of my ideas of what we can do to save some money rather than hire some outside engineering contractor to fix a secondary going from a transformer to a person's house, right? There are way cheaper ways to do it. I know because I've done it myself. Going back to the idea of being mindful how you spend your money and the decisions you make, Bob. After the special board meeting for the water, I overheard you say something that was very disappointing to me. I'm having a hard time paying my bills here because they are so expensive, right? And you voted to raise my water bill by 50%. And then in the next breath, after one of the members from the Girl Scout camp called and said that they don't know if they'll be able to operate because the price is going up so high, I overheard you in between the meetings say, well, maybe I can just write a check, a donation to them so that they can continue to operate. What about me? Where was your thought for me? Where was your thought for the rest of the community? If you're just going to say, oh, well, here's a solution. I can just pull money out of my pocket and give it to them so that they can survive. What about the rest of us? Why don't you pull money out of your pocket and just fix all the problems here? And that way we don't have to raise the rates. I don't have faith in your ability to make a proper decision on how to spend our money if you're going to think like that. And if I keep seeing decisions where there's just no thought in what is the cheapest way of doing this, what is the best, most efficient way, what is the way that we can utilize what we already have in-house to fix the problems, then I'm going to run against you in 4 years. And I'm going to sit there. Don't break Kirkwood. This is a very unique place. This is not down in the valley. This is not over the hill in Carson City. We get on average 500 inches of snow. You have to be hard. You have to be tough to live here. I've lived above 6,500 feet in the Sierras for 20 years. I know that. You need to start thinking hard and tough to solve the problems here and not just taking my money and throwing it at your problems. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Jay. Appreciate it.
Response?
I mean, I can give, there's no discussion or actions that we can really take. So, I mean, I will just say thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity that you gave us to speak to you directly if we have follow-up thoughts and questions. But I think there's an agenda item later where I will touch on some of the things that you touched on. And when we get to was it 9? Or I guess it's 10 this time. G. I will touch on more of at least my opinions on some of the things that you touched on there. So thank you for your comment. Did you want to have, go ahead, Trevor?
I'm Trevor Pitak, a new homeowner in East Meadows. I was the acting GC for a new build there. And I have some comments about the upcoming rate study. I'll keep it brief because I think I've sent an email to all of you already. And I know that it's not quite on the agenda yet. I just wanted to kind of raise my hand and say, hey, I'm paying attention to this. And I'm curious to be involved if there's a chance to do so. I don't know if I'm allowed to pass these out or if it's even worthwhile, but I did a little back of the envelope calculation on the current rate structure for electricity and realized that for the next 3 years as a new homeowner, that the effective cost per kilowatt hour of my electricity is about $4 a kilowatt. And then after that, the effective cost is about 30 cents a kilowatt. When you factor in the effect of your first 3 years consumption on the setting of the base rate in subsequent years through the EDU/AMU calculation. And I think my comment is mostly that I think this creates some weird incentives because since this electricity is so expensive early on after a new sale or after a new build, there's really not a lot of incentive to electrify if you are a new owner or building new construction. And I think the sort of idea behind doing this out valley line and the big investment was, hey, we should make it so the marginal cost of electricity is super cheap. We did all this capital investment to get the new line in, and we want people to use it. That electricity is clean. In fact, I think you purchased renewable energy credits to make sure that it's 100% renewable. Which is interesting. I feel like in some senses that those should be paid by the propane users rather than the electricity users because of the propane now that's emitting the carbon. But anyway, that's kind of a detail. I think the main point is just as you're thinking about this rate study, I as a new homeowner don't feel that cheap marginal cost of power because all the power that I use in this first 3 years is actually coming very expensive because it's going to set a high base rate for me going forward. And I didn't quite realize this when we were building. So we did electrify everything and put in heat pumps and electric range and things like this. And now I'm sitting here going, oh man, $4 a kilowatt every time I turn on my stove or take a shower or whatever. That's a lot for a marginal cost of power. I'm like, yeah, man, I should have done a propane while it was still allowed, although I'm sure you guys appreciate not having more propane customers. So anyway, I just know there's a rate study coming up, and I think there's an opportunity to kind of move more in a direction where the new homeowners, new builds feel this cheap marginal cost of electricity that was the goal of setting up all this great capital investment that you guys did a long time ago. I know these are complicated. We don't like to, have big perturbations to anybody's bills. I'm not expecting this overnight, and I know there's a lot of complexity in corner case, but I think I have a pretty strong opinion to the board that it doesn't make a lot of sense to have that base rate be a strong function of that usage in the first few years, because it's creating some very weird incentives for buried natural gas tanks in East Meadows, or for me to run a generator, which I'm doing to power some of my appliances and stuff. Like $4 a kilowatt is just too much. So anyway, hopefully there's opportunity for future discussion. And I don't know if I actually trade wholesale electricity professionally, so it's kind of near and dear to my heart of how this all works and time of use schedules and hedging your wholesale power procurement and whatnot. I think that's only marginally relevant here. Most of the expenses, capital expenses of
not
building.
entirely, because we did some changes recently. No, Trevor, thank you for your comments. We appreciate it. I think everyone recognizes some of the nuances that you brought up, and they were recognized 5 years ago or 4.5 years ago. We have a temporary advisory committee that Bob and Chris are doing on the electric rates. So I think in January is the plan to have our next agenda item on this. So I encourage you to attend in January and give comments there as we go through this. And the rate, the plan will be have this up and running by July 1st. So please stay tuned and please participate.
Amazing. And I have a little bit of self-interest here, obviously, but I think I also have a community interest. Like I would love Kirkwood to burn less, propane and wood and diesel like we used to in the power plant and stuff, and have a kind of sensible, logical rate structure. And so anyway, to the extent that you're looking for public or community involvement in that committee, I'm more than happy to be involved, and I'm curious how it all turns out.
Thank you very much. Thanks. And I want to say all the other customers who have reached out to us with some different variants of a similar concern. So we understand it. And I think Bob and Chris will guide us on that conversation. So thank you.
Amazing. Thank you.
I don't see the Zoom right now. Is there anyone else with their hand up?
Nobody with their hand up right now.
Okay, great. So that was number 6, comments from the audience. 7, written comments from the public. We did get an email that we did not include. Trevor was here to give his his comments about regarding those, but no other written comments, is my understanding. All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 8, adoption of the consent calendar, which will now include 8A and 8C. Questions, comments, motion?
I move adoption of A and C.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
All in favor indicate with aye. Any opposed? Okay, passes. Move on to agenda item 9, which is consent items brought forward for separate discussion and action. So that's 8E.
Yeah, I just had a question what the credits were on page 28. They were like, $200 to $500 credits for the race people.
Gary, you want to come up and answer that question? Credits. Credit refund here for example, this person here.
So it's either, well, that one's not a construction deposit refund, so it could
It's
be,
probably mapped through picture. Yeah, so staff has recently gone back to take a look to see what was on deposit for projects that were either built. And there was a difference between the deposit and what was needed. And then, for example, there was a homeowner on Dangberg who never built. And so we just recently refunded them their construction deposit as well.
So these are construction
they
deposits?
could be a combined construction or they could be escrow refunds.
It's like
And the
Eric's,
rest go refunds, yeah.
Yeah,
Eric's on there, Devin Ridge.
Eric's would be an escrow.
Yeah, Eric's was a
Yeah.
escrow,
Okay.
Base Camp was escrow. I don't remember David Miller off the top of my head. And then 39 Palisades. Was an escrow, I believe, right?
Yeah, I believe that one. I don't recall that being the
So
construction.
we could certainly look
Yeah.
into it and report back at finance if you'd like.
Yeah, I just, there are quite a few of them, so it seems like there's a project to track these down. We don't normally have these in the,
Yeah, we had reviewed the construction deposits on file and there were quite a few that were
okay,
completed and that we just had not refunded their money. So
okay,
You'll see more next month as well.
okay,
We're just cleaning up things.
all right, that's it.
Yeah.
Good enough, thanks.
All right, then I would accept a motion to approve what is the approval for current consent for claims, which was agenda item 8B.
Motion to approve 8B.
Okay, is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
All in favor indicate by aye. Any opposed? None opposed. All right, now we're going to move on to agenda item 10, items for board action. So as common, we have a number of sub items here. Given earlier the seating of the new board members and agenda item 4, when we seat our new board every 2 years, we go through a couple of these agenda items A, B, and C, which are all related, but we basically start with the nomination and election of a board president. And then we go through and we'll do officer nomination elections and then committee appointments. So we will start with 10A, or a nomination of the president and election.
I'd like to nominate Doug Rotunda for president. I'll second that.
Thank you. Anyone else want to get nominated?
Well, the last time I was nominated, you asked me to give a speech. But I'm not going to do that.
Well, I'm asking if anyone wants to also be nominated to be president.
Okay.
Does anyone else want to be nominated to be president?
It's good that you asked that, but no, not from here.
Okay. Well, I will say thank you for nominating me, Peter seconding me. I think, we have a lot of work to do. I appreciate the comments earlier from our public, but we have things on the rate study, and I appreciate Jay's comments on the community. And I think we have a lot of good things coming up in the next year. Appreciate that we've had a new general manager come in this last couple of months to step right in and to really take off in a good position for us. So I would be honored to continue as president for 2 more years. If you all would continue to want that to happen, and if the community wants that to happen as well. So thank you.
I certainly support that. Could you refresh my memory? When did you become president? It was how many months
January,
ago?
12 months ago, or
Oh, so-
January, I took over. Bob, we usually do this for 2-year positions.
Oh,
And Bob had extended past he had done 2 years
Right.
going into 20,
3, yeah.
and then he added a year into the next term, and then we voted
So
to
that
have
was just a special arrangement for an extra year.
Yeah,
I see.
no one wanted to take it over at that time, and then I got elected effective January 1st or December 31st or something like that in 2025. So this would be then for a full 2-year term as president. Okay.
Do we vote?
So all in favor of having Doug Murata be the president of the KMPD board, indicate by saying aye.
I,
Any opposed? Okay. All right, well, thank you all for your confidence in me. All right, so we'll move on to agenda item 9B, which is nominations for board officers and committee appointments. So in anticipation that I might be nominated, I did put together some ideas that I wanted people to be able to look at. So in the board packet, you have the current, so I put together the current of what exists. And then on the second page here, which I didn't put in the board packet because I wasn't sure if I'd be president and this would be moot or not. You can see what I would be proposing for officers and the committee assignments. And similar to the spreadsheet that you see here, and we'll talk about it so people can get up to speed on it, but it's a couple of things that I wanted to go over. So the first thing is I would propose basically to have the same officer positions as we have today. And then in terms of committee assignments, it's some slight changes. I think we had a situation the last year or so where we had Peter on one committee and Chris wanted to make sure that you had a chance to chair communications. I know that's something you're passionate about. And so I would step off of communications and have Chris and Bob be on communications, Peter and John on finance. I would join Peter on EOP. Personnel would be myself and John as continuation, and then Chris, I'd ask if you would want to go on to IT with Bob. One of the things I was thinking for the EOP with Peter beyond finance is that as I think about our progression of how to spend the community's money, is that we have usually capital expenses like digging holes or new requirements, and that's where engineering, operations, and planning would typically start that conversation. And then finance would be figuring out the way of, assuming that the EOP and the board agrees that that's a prudent expense that we should be spending. Finance is responsible for basically figuring out how to pay for it. And so having some synergies across those two committees is what made sense to me. And why I had that as a suggested configuration. So these are technically two different topics of board officers. So that's the box at the top, which would be the same as what everyone sees here. And then the 9C agenda item, or sorry, 10C, I keep saying 9 because that's typically what this is. But 10C today is the committee appointments. And again, it's what I just described. So for people listening, it's similar to what you see on the screen right now with some adjustments that I will walk through as we get closer to a vote on it. So that everyone can be on it, including the community. Any thoughts or questions on the rationale, the setup?
For officer or for committee, both?
Let's start with officer.
Officer is fine from my point of view.
Yep, looks good.
All right, well then if officers are okay, then I would entertain a motion to accept the officer nominations, which are the same as on the screen right now as the current. So I will just say we will maintain the current officer positions for the next 2 years. I'd accept a motion.
All right, motion to.
I'll second that.
Continue. All right, second, all in favor indicate with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. So those are the officer positions. So let's move on to committee appointments. Any thoughts or concerns or questions or feedback on these things? We can always change them and move them around, but this is, again, I described my opening thoughts, and then that way everyone again is on one committee chair and one's a committee member, and then just going in the way that I kind of outlined. So thoughts, questions, concerns?
No, it looks good. Definitely, I know personally, I can add, I think this is where I add the most values, finance and personnel, so I'm happy to help. And the others look good as well.
I'm pleased to be on communications. I would prefer not to be on cyber and IT.
Okay,
And would like to stay on finance committee as a member.
okay. Peter, that would be, we could do, Peter, how do you feel about being on finance? Do you want to be on finance? Is this something you feel strongly about? Would you rather do IT and cybersecurity? Or not do engineering, operations and planning?
I could switch to IT and cybersecurity, I guess,
Okay,
and let Chris, go in finance if you feel strongly.
I'd like to, thank you.
Yeah, I'm okay with that,
Nice of you.
okay,
because it might be educational for me, IT.
okay. I'd be okay with that.
There's so many fish on,
Yeah, a lot of fishing.
Oh, yeah, we get more here than anywhere.
it's crazy.
Yeah, that's
I get a
true.
couple a week.
I don't answer any emails anymore.
Yeah, and it just hit the delete.
Well, I was just mentioning to our clerk that whenever we do our cybersecurity training, to make sure to always send an email to us from her address first, because I assume everything I get external is not valid typically. Except that, customers in our community, of course, but,
Yeah.
Okay, any other thoughts, comments on that? Otherwise, I will go through what I've heard as the change from this document and then read it out loud so everyone can understand it and hear it. Any other thoughts or questions?
Yeah, it's good.
That seems fine.
Okay, and remind me about, do we need to vote on this or do I sign these things? I can't remember.
You should vote.
Yeah,
Okay.
I thought so.
So then I'll read out the committees here. So it'd be finance would be the chair will be John Schroeder. The member will be Chris Tucker. Engineering operations planning will be chaired by Peter Dornbrook. And the member will be myself, Doug Rotunda. Communications will be chaired by Chris Tucker, joined by Bob Epstein as a member. Personnel will be chaired by Doug Rotunda, joined by John Schroeder as a member. And IT and cybersecurity will be chaired by Bob Epstein and joined by by Peter Dornbrook as a member. And then LAFCO, we will maintain Bob and myself as our representatives to that if and when that ever meets again
Yeah,
in 3 years.
right.
Okay. Thoughts, questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to have those committees assignments as I just read.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor indicate by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
We
Okay,
are
great.
unanimous today.
Em, are you getting our names or do we need to? Okay, all right, let us know.
Can we put the names of anybody that's online up on the screen so we know who's here?
I can ask Rick to do that potentially, or how would that work, Rick?
Sure, I'll just slide it over. Possibly. Possibly not.
Okay, while we're working on that, we're gonna move ahead to agenda item 10D, Fire Services Assessment Prop 218 timeline. There was intended to be a staff report in the board packet that I think has been now updated, so the one on the website has it. It was not included in the email that was distributed earlier. All the board members here should have a printout of that report. If anyone needs it in the public, they can ask for one. Em has them. And Rick, you'll be able to share the screen that has that as well, I believe.
There we go. Everybody can see that.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not as good with that font as I used to be.
I'm happy to read the names if you like.
No, I don't think we need to.
It's okay, yeah.
Font size.
Okay.
Board members are welcome to join and mute themselves if they want to be seeing these as well. So Rick, let me hand it to you in a second. I always like to make sure I provide some context on this topic in particular. This has been a topic that the board's been discussing probably for decades. More recently, in the last couple of years, the more recent history is, starting, I would say, with Measure E, as many people here will remember, was one chance to do this, of trying to fund for more professional services in Kirkwood for fire and emergency services. A lot has happened since that vote. I like to think that we did it, listen to the community in terms of feedback of making sure we had real cost proposals from our potential partnerships and having a formalized engineering assessment so that people understand exactly what they would be asked to pay for and the level of service that you would get for said money. And so we have worked diligently over the last 2.5, 3 years, most recently in this calendar year with Alpine County, who have come forward with a proposal that was of a dollar value and level of service that we as a board thought would be most likely to get passed. We did have 2 other proposals from other neighboring communities, but that was a much more expensive full-time level of service. So where we are now is we did a community survey back a couple of months ago. So everyone had about 2.5 weeks to respond with exactly what they would be able to pay, or would they be asked to pay for the level of service that we had outlined, which is 1 firefighter EMT 24/7, 365 in Kirkwood, supported by our volunteer fire department and volunteer firefighters. That vote was an informal vote. It did not have no legal binding or bearing on any outcomes or any decisions. However, the board at our November meeting used that information to influence whether we wanted to take the next step, which would go out to the community for the actual legally binding 218 vote. And so when you hear us say 218, that's just the term that we use to refer to the mechanism, the vehicle by which we would fund the money and collect taxes basically to fund the services that we have asked for. So at that meeting, we were talking about timelines. We had talked about having this go out after the holiday season and starting there. And so what we want to do today is go through the official timeline of, where we think, where we are today. The board voted to move forward with this 218 process. So what are the dates? What are the steps? And getting down to, more concrete so that we can let all of you know now. And we will certainly let them know, because you'll notice here, one of the first things on our list is to have a community forum, just like we did. We had 2 community forums back in early 2025. We had another one back in late 2023 as well. And so we're going to have another community forum to get the community again prepared. We will walk through and even some more detail of what I just summarized for 2 minutes to make sure everyone understands as much as we can, to get everyone on board with what this process is, what a yes vote means, what a no vote means, and the possible implications of, depending on how the vote goes, what will happen with fire and emergency services in Kirkwood. Is that a decent summary? Did I miss anything? Okay, good. So, Rick, if you want to get to the staff report on this for me, please, on the screen so that people online can see it as well.
Unfortunately, I won't be able to put it on. Well, actually, maybe we add that to it. Sorry.
Sure.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
30, 31.
I've memorized.
And then I'll hand it to you
I've
now,
memorized it.
Rick, I'm on page 32 of the board packet.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if you want to go through, so I'd ask staff to go through working with our 218 consultant who will be administering this. And again, as a reminder, part of the reason the board was deliberating is that we would need to pay money for this. So we wanted to make sure that if we were spending the community's money prudently, as commented earlier, the board wanted to make sure that we had enough community support from the informal survey to make sure that it made sense to spend the community's money to go forward. And so the board voted that we thought we did have enough thought and support behind this to make sense to go spend that money. So that's where we are. So, Rick.
So for this month, again, we reached out to the engineer who wrote the initial report and asked him to revise his engineer's report to prepare for the fire service assessment. That's currently being done now. Once he's complete of updating and modifying and basically ensuring that everything within the report meets the Prop 218 requirements, then we'll send it to district councils for a final review. Note that the district council has already looked at this report for structure and legality, so we don't expect the time to have that report returned to us to be very long, hopefully. And then Francisco and Associated will continue to work with a third-party vendor to generate the ballot, the actual ballot itself, along with the return envelope and the information that will be included for the property owners to review. The next step here will be at the Communications Committee on December 11th, 2 p.m. If anybody's interested in attending that meeting, there we'll discuss how we will report out the next steps. For example, the community forum that Doug mentioned, which we're hoping to have, we're scheduled to have on December 30th at 6 p.m. with our engineer who prepared the report is available and will be attending the meeting. It'll be an in-person / Zoom meeting, just like today's board meeting, with a really brief PowerPoint to talk about where we were, what this is all about, the Prop 218 process. And then finally, we really want to open it up for question and answers for the community. That's really the main point here. And for those who are interested, we're going to open up the fire station downstairs to allow the community to tour the equipment and to get a chance to ask more questions if needed. Moving forward to January 2nd, it'll be, and I should note that on January 2nd is our goal to get all the information back to the board for the board to pass a resolution of intent to proceed forward with the 218 process. At this time, according to the engineer, we feel like we can hit this goal, and I will do my best to try to make it January 2nd for the board to review actually approve the engineer's report and also pass a resolution to proceed. Then after that, in mid-January, we hope to send out the ballot. There's a bit of a process to get the ballots together to send out, which we've actually already begun. With the intent to include the 45 required day period to receive ballots, including up into the actual special meeting or up into the special meeting, which we hope to have on March 6th, prior to the KMPD regular board meeting.
So the 217 would change to March
March 6th.
6th.
So that's going to be a revision in the staff report that was passed out today.
March 6th.
Yeah. And then beyond that point,
I will not be here.
assuming if the majority of the weighted yes votes exceeds 50% of the total ballots returned, the board may adopt the resolution confirming the assessment. If it's approved, then the assessment would be assigned to the property tax roll. And obviously, if they don't meet the 50% standard, then it does not pass, and obviously the board will not be able to make that judgment for that vote. After the assessment, assuming it's approved, then we would go back to Alpine County to develop an MOU, an agreement to work with Alpine County. But again, it's a bit of a process, and we want to make sure that we meet the state's requirements for providing a fire service assessment. So that concludes my report on the timeline, and we'll certainly bring this timeline back in January with further updates.
How are the ballot, who and how are the ballots tallied?
The ballots will be tallied by a third party, Francisco and Associates.
Okay.
And then again, they're going to generate basically the language of the ballot has to be written in a certain way, and legal counsel will also have to review the ballot itself to make sure it complies.
But they're gonna count the results, report the results.
I believe so, yeah.
Rick, two questions. One is, Francisco did a really nice brochure for explaining everything. At what point will that be available so we can review that, or?
We hope to get that back or a draft of that back in the January 2nd meeting.
Okay,
For your review.
I think that would be important. And then second, is there any opportunity for the fire chief to attend, particularly the community meetings?
Oh, the Alpine County Fire.
Alpine County Fire.
Alpine
Sorry.
County. I
Yeah.
will certainly invite him and well, definitely include him.
And we can also ask our Alpine County staff partners who've been working with the CEO of Alpine County,
Yeah.
Supervisor Woodrow, certainly always welcome.
Because those are the people that would be implementing.
Correct, and it'd be good to have their participation as well. I agree.
Yeah. Okay.
Including Supervisor Jeff Smith as well with Amarillo County.
Brown.
Brown, sorry. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I think the more the merrier, in my opinion,
Okay.
on that.
So that February 17th is definitely not happening.
That is definitely not happening.
Okay.
We're looking at March 7th.
Okay.
March
Or 6th,
6th.
March 6th.
Okay.
That's the day.
So I have a question. So March 6th replaces February 16th on all of this?
Yes.
well.
Well, the
February-
inclusion of the
45
45-day
days.
period may be
Yeah.
sooner.
That's still a 216 is the conclusion of the 40 day. Where it says public hearing 2/17/26, that's being replaced with 3/6/26 at probably 1 p.m. or something like that. So not 6 p.m. So it'll be something like that on that day.
Right.
And then the next row under that, which is the develop MOU, I guess that would be 3/7.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So those are the two date changes on here. Let me open it up to the public for any questions, comments, concerns with this timeline or, the 218 process.
Will we get any?
Can you come to the podium? Just gotta make sure people can hear you. Thank you.
Are we, as a community, gonna get any projections on future cost raises as the years go by?
Well, I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's all, the only cost increase that we can do for the ordinance is CPI. So what we're authorized, what we,
acronym?
it's consumer price index, meaning like inflation. So whatever inflation rate is, if it's 2%, then the maximum, don't quote me on the exact numbers, 300 some $1,000 that we would be asking to the community fund. That would most go up by 2% the next year, and then 2% the year after that at most. That's what we would be legally allowed to do under the approval of this mechanism. Of course, if we wanted to raise more money, we could go out with another process in a future time, but under this mechanism that you would be voting on in January, that is the maximum amount we can ever charge. But we can also, I will highlight, and I think this is important, especially as we're highlighting that this MOU and process would start in March, we can also charge less. So if we don't incur costs because we're waiting for people to get hired or whatever it is through this process, and I was working with Alpine County, we can charge less than the allocated amount that the board or that the community votes on. We can just never charge more than the community votes on. Does that make sense?
But I have just a minor follow-up on that. Are we then obligated to continue providing the service forever? Or if like in the future, we say, hey, we don't want to do this over the summer, it's not worthwhile. We need to go back and do another 218 vote.
No, I would say no, because the way that we're anticipating writing the contract with Alpine County is that we would both have exit agreements from that contract, that agreement. But furthermore, as I said, we can also just ratchet this down to 0. Or the board could then vote to eliminate this entirely because we want no future ability to do this. And if we wanted to go do that in the future, we'd have to start this whole process again, that whole thing. But we have the ability to always go lower than the number that the community is being asked to fund. Any other questions? Community? Any other
For the attendees.
Thank you. Any other board questions or comments on this timeline? Okay, then I would accept a motion to amend or approve the timeline in the board packet with the 2 amendments being February 17th, 2026 changes to March 6th, 2026, and February 18th, 2026 change to March 7th, 2026. I'd accept a motion.
And Doug, also, just mailing of the ballots won't be on the 5th. It'll probably be in the middle, beginning between the 1st and the 15th of the month, essentially.
So
It's gonna take a bit for them to get that out.
Okay.
So.
the 45-day window, but regardless, because it goes to March 6th,
45-day window.
we'll accommodate the legally required 45-day window, no matter what happens in that window, because the 45-day window will still happen as long as it happens, whatever 45 days before March 6th is, which we anticipate that would be no problem of achieving that.
Correct. Thank you.
45 days receipt of the ballot, not postmark.
Receive of the ballot, you can actually bring your ballot to the meeting itself.
But I think Bob's asking, what does the 45-day clock start? Is it when
End.
postmark or end, or is it,
When the ballot is sent.
and then when is it, the 45-day
I
ends?
think it's gonna be sent on January 12th.
But the ending date is receipt of the ballot or postmark.
I'm not exactly sure,
I mean,
but I'll talk to Ed Espinosa.
why don't you ask that, just so we know, yeah.
Right, because that will be a nuance that we'll need to make sure we understand,
Yeah,
certainly.
and we'll report that out for him.
Okay.
And then just another very clarification, this spirit, the 45-day window will stay 45 days, even if it's technically 55 or 60 days.
Exactly,
So we're gonna close 45 according to whatever you find out from Bob, whether it's received date or postmark date. So if we went out on the 1st and 45 days was like February 15th, postmarked or received will end that, even though we won't talk about it until March 6th.
It will be clearly written in the
Yeah.
ballot itself, but I'll confirm it.
Okay.
A good question.
Okay, motion as I described with those amendments to the dates and understanding that the exact timelines on delivery on January 5th and 45 days will be slightly changed, but mostly accurate.
Yeah, I'll move to approve that.
There's a second.
I'll second.
Everyone in favor indicate with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And no one's opposed. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and look forward to the community forum on September 13th. I will just say I've been sending emails to our customers like Kirkwood Mountain Resorts, Ricky Newberry, our other Kirkwood Capital Partners, and our HOA presidents to help them on this. Now that this is approved, I will send an email to them as I typically do, just to give them the heads up and start that conversation again to generate knowledge and certainly awareness and participation, hopefully on December 30th. And during the balloting. Okay, let's move on to agenda item 10E, finances. Very.
All right, good afternoon. Today we'll be reviewing the September financials. So we have the overview on the screen. Overall, we're on track. Operating is above budget and capital reserves are slightly below. Our year-to-date combined income is slightly below budget, primarily due to the higher operations and maintenance. And you're
Can I-
gonna see
I'm
these.
sorry. Can we interrupt or do you want me to wait here? I mean, you say slightly below, isn't it 29% below?
Correct. So I'm just kind of going over the overview, then I'll go on to the balance sheet.
Okay, all right, we'll hold
Yep.
that till the balance sheet then.
Okay. I'm just kind of giving a brief overview of September. Are there any questions on the overview before we kind of hit the balance sheet?
The big items in the overview are the operational costs that are gonna carry through the year, which is what, around 117,000,
Mhm.
something like that.
Right.
And that's the impact to the ordinary income. Primarily.
Well, we do carry it through the year, but, and I get to see this in finance, I still think it'd be worth a little bit of public discussion. Could you, Terry, talk a little bit about, or just remind us, this discrepancy in operating income that just goes month after month?
Correct. So the operation and maintenance, they're higher due to the projects that we've had at the beginning of the year. So that, like I mentioned, that expense will be carried through the financials the rest of the year. And it is listed on the overview here under combined income statement. Is that what you were referring to?
Yes.
Okay, and then just on the balance sheet, let's just move back up. The total operating budget was above budget by 29.45%. And that was due to the timing of the collections and the 501c3 stipend reimbursement.
But
Okay.
But compared to last month, I mean, when, timing of collections, is it a 1 month problem that will be fixed next month? Wasn't it a problem last month also?
Well, and we had some adjustments that were made, so of course that's why the timing, you'll see an increase.
Okay,
And then, of course, the capital reserve is below budget by the 22.47%. And we did have a quarterly rest loan payment.
but it's below budget and we knew we were going to have a quarterly rest loan payment. So I don't remember why we budgeted to miss that.
Right. That's something I could look into and see why it was below in more detail.
Few things are
Yeah.
more forecastable than our rest loan payments. Okay. Got it. No more questions on the balance sheet. Well, no, I'm sorry, I will ask one more on current liabilities. Current liabilities, last month, we had I'm talking now, last month's packet. So this goes back, we were off by $400,000 or more. Is that how did we get through that? How did we fix that almost $500,000
The last month,
miss on current liabilities? And what are current liability, other current liabilities, I should say?
yeah, that was the budget numbers, and we had discussed that in finance, and they were updated, and that's why you're seeing a difference from the last financials to these.
The budget numbers were carried over from last year and last month's reports. So we fixed that in the finance committee meeting. So now they're fixing the board packet.
John knows, I mean, and Terry knows, I am of the view that we need to make our financials more explanatory. I would challenge, I mean, there's so many examples where we'll get to cash flow in a minute. That's where I start this discussion. But even on current liabilities, if you look at this, total accounts payable, total accrued, on and on it goes, total other current liabilities, these other liabilities are really big. We sometimes miss them by 6-figure amounts, and it's not clear why these are total nor what these other things are. And so the innovation of the variance report, the thing we do at the very top of our financials every month, was a great thing. I think it needs to be revisited and improved upon, and other liabilities as an example of that.
Okay.
Current liabilities are now square, they're fixed. But thanks for explaining or reminding us from the miss last month. I guess
You're wanting to have more detail of like what current liabilities, what accounts?
and that's something we can discuss in, more detail in the finance committee. But yes. So now I think you probably want to move to income statement. That's fine with me.
Yep. Okay, combined income statement. So year to date is worse than budget by 117,620. And of course, we just talked about the operations and maintenance are higher due to the projects that we had earlier in the year. We have
so that miss, again, that's a 50% miss. It's a year to date. So we're 3 or 4 months into the fiscal year. A 49% miss. The projects that we're talking about, the biggest one is fire hydrants, isn't it?
the Loop Road project.
Is the Loop Road the biggest chunk of the 117K?
Yep.
Okay. All right. And will we be seeing this $100,000 plus shortfall all fiscal year long?
Yes, it's the fourth item in the variance.
Yep. It's there every month, almost like copy paste.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the combined income statement or individual income statements?
Water fund?
Okay. Let me go down to water.
Is there something above that? Anybody?
Okay, let's go down to water. Page, do you want to go?
So
41.
income on water, it says in the variance report, it's off by $78,000. 78,000 off budget. That's mostly that's the thing that's mostly hydrants,
Correct.
I think.
Yep.
And so again, I should go back and visit our budget planning for water back at the time, but we're $90,000 off after just 5 months off of $200,000 of revenue. So I mean, 90K sounds like a small number, but total revenue year to date is only $200,000. Water is only 1/10 of our overall business, so I don't mean to make too much out of a small thing, but it's just that we're off by $78,000 on a project that maybe could have, should have been in budget. Is a concern. Unless you have any comments, I'll just
Well, let's stop.
yeah.
Thoughts, comments, Terry, or?
Like I said, there's also other expenses in there, the contract services as mentioned in
That's
your
$1,000,
higher also. Due to
2,000.
the wastewater study.
Yeah.
So it's a combination.
Yeah.
But definitely we could look at budget, as we are gonna be drafting next year's budget probably within the next couple months. It's something we could definitely look at.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Any other questions on income statements?
No, thanks, not from me.
We can move down to October preliminaries.
Only on the page.
All right, keep going.
49.
Thank you. I was getting there. Budget approving.
And this is gonna be adjusted, right?
Yeah. So you will notice a significant amount in other income, which is primarily reflects the first installment of the snow removal contract revenue. So we will be allocating this revenue monthly, and that change you're going to see on the October financials. We discussed that in finance.
So that's a change in, that, John knows this, of course, it's his committee, but that's a change in our whole approach to accounting for snow removal, which has been cash as opposed to accrual until now.
Well, I don't think it was in past years.
No, it's
It-
always been monthly.
Well,
The last 2 years, looking back, it has been per installment. It was October and then January. I don't know why the change.
Oh, really?
But
No.
it should be
But-
accrual based, yeah.
Yeah.
So we will be making that correction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions on preliminaries? Okay, cash flow. So we're looking October, we have earned 9,872 in interest. And you will see, there will be a correction on cash flow next month that will correct the snow removal revenue.
so, again, I do discuss this in finance committees. I still think just a touch of this is useful here. Is it clear to everyone? Because it's always confusing to me. This is a report that is both backward looking and forward looking. And do you always, am I the only one who always has to break my brain to realize which is actual and which is still budget?
It's hard to see, but you can see it's shaded
There's
in
a shaded
gray.
gray at the top line.
Yes, so those are like,
Yeah.
yep, and then we're moving forward from October, so we're looking
Mhm.
October, and now we're forecasting from November
Mhm.
forward. I know,
Yeah.
I can change the color if it,
Right, well, and again, this, we'll do all this in the finance committee if we do it at all, but, yeah, I'm an advocate for making this cash flow report, more usable, that we've tripped up on it ourselves, in finance committee. The updated operating forecast, I guess, the very basics that we don't have are operating net income or our overall net income, and then minus out depreciation, which is again $500,000 number. It's a big number. That doesn't stand right here, is a problem, and it's just one of several relatively simple reformatting changes that I will advocate, at least that we try to make, because I find this report very difficult to grok.
all right, any other questions? We can discuss this in finance.
And I'll touch on that idea more generally later on in this meeting, actually. So thank you.
Okay,
Okay, any other thoughts, questions, concerns? John, anything from finance as the chair you want to mention?
No.
can I give a brief update on audit?
Yes.
All right, the draft audit is almost complete. There are a few updates that we're working on and hope to return it to the audit team next week. Once Moss Adams has completed the review process, a meeting will be scheduled with the audit committee, so.
Yeah, it might be tight to get it to audit committee, finance committee, to get it to the next board meeting, but we're gonna try to make that happen.
Thank you.
Eric.
All right, let's move on
Thanks,
to
Eric.
agenda item 10F, resolution 25-09, Russ Certificate of Authority, Form 675. Rick, I'll hand this to you.
So continuing on from the changeover from the former general manager to myself, one of the things that was required is allow me to be able to authorize funds within Russ. So before you is resolution 2509, which essentially gives me the ability to sign off on the Russ payments. And there's a copy of the certificate of authority in the board packet. If anybody wants to know what the attachment was, basically it's the signing form. And that's my report unless there's any questions. And the board has signed this form in the past as well. 675.
Are there any questions from the community?
Good.
Questions from the board? Okay, I would entertain a motion to.
Motion to
pass
approve.
The resolution. Okay,
Second.
All right, all in favor indicate with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, those approved unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now we'll move on to item 10G. This is the KMPD branding. So I'll give a little bit of background here. Probably 4 months ago, Bob had given the suggestion to the board to consider reminding ourselves and the community at large that this board is not an IOU, an investor-owned utility. We're not PG&E, not SDG&E, not SCE. We are a public utility. And so, Bob, I think you had seen some stuff at SMUD, Sacramento Municipal Utility District, that had piqued your interest and suggested that we at the KMPD, again, remind ourselves and our community members that we are owned and operated, and all of us on the board report to the community. And so the suggestion was to take this to the communications committee to think about rebranding our logo and adding some terminology in our logo. And I think I would also say updating our website and adding some more language around reminding ourselves of this. So communications took this on. And I will also say, just as a high level, I don't think we anticipate spending a lot of money on this, but I think this was asked by John a prior meeting. You'll talk about money here, and that when taking this endeavor on, we asked Rick for where's all the collateral, like the PNG, the vector files, like where is, if you're in branding, and can I blow it up? And like, no one has the KMPD logo that you see on our website today in the formats that we would need. And so part of what we were thinking is if we go this route, which again, we'll talk about our options.
Save the files.
We're going to save the files. Yeah, we're going to do the work and save the files.
Motion to save the files.
Motion to save the files approved. Okay. So that's the idea. So
Are we gonna is this gonna be replacement as needed?
that's the idea, is not to go and say, all right, we're going to take down things or throw away letterhead or recycle letterhead that, we have. It would just be as needed and as we fill it, so that cost of it, I would advocate that we do not incur. We just do it as needed going further. If we go down a route of changing anything, it would only to be hiring a professional designer who could pull together real collateral that does all of the things at sizes and scale that we would want and need to be operating and marketing on websites versus out on our vehicles, if we ever replace those. Because I think, Rick, that's a logo before the current one, even probably on some of our machinery, maybe. So
Yeah.
Anyway, that would be as needed. The other thing I would say is I think of this as Chris, I think you brought this up, and I had the same sentiment, which is that all of this is great. But it's one thing to say something that we are community focused and we're really want to be community, but another thing is to make sure that we're taking those actions and making sure the community understands that. And so I see this as an opportunity potentially, in that my understanding is that annually, the board president, you sent it last year, but now that I've been reelected as board president, end of December, early January, we send a letter. And I would see this as an opportunity to talk about this and say, this is how we, and give some examples of how I believe, at least personally, and I think, Rick has, in his new role especially, tried to take on some of the spirit here of, having community forums on the fire. We had 2 of them earlier in the year. We're having another one in December for fire. Trying to, Manganese, we worked very hard to go to HOA meetings and go to all these things as much as we could this summer, and really trying to emphasize what we are doing. And if the community has suggestions, how can we be more community focused? They can give this to us. And going to Jay, your comments earlier, I see this as an opportunity to really double down on making sure we're getting this feedback and thought. And that would be a vehicle that I would say we could go and talk about this in a more public way. So all of that said, our options are, do nothing, keep it as is. And I will thank Sandy Goldberg, who's on the communications committee, thank her for doing this. She just went into Canva and started playing around and took some suggestions, and this language of community powered, customer focused. She came up with it. We can change those words. Like, there's nothing set in stone on any of this. That what you're seeing in this board packet, this is all open for conversation, and we can move at whatever pace that we want to on this. There isn't a huge urgency. Other than maybe if we decide to move forward in some way, I might say something like this in the annual letter, and then, obviously the money that we might spend on this to get the documents. In Sandy's work on this, she saw our logo. She got the feedback of putting it in the tagline, like making that line in between a little bit larger to put some language in there. And then while she was working on it, she said, well, what if I spend a few minutes and make it a little bit more of a modern logo?
Yeah, the bottom one's nicer.
So thank you for opinions. And so the idea is, do we want to just take what we have today and add some language to it? Do we want to do nothing to the logo and add more language to our website and in our newsletter? Or, we can get, this is, the spectrum is here.
My take on it would be, I like the bottom one best as long as we don't incur costs. So it means like if we buy a new vehicle, we put that on the vehicle, but we're not gonna go back and retrofit this or incur costs to any sort of rebranding cost.
I concur with that.
Well, actually, before we go into votes on the conversation of the board, let me ask the public, any public opinion or thoughts, please come on up.
You guys are absolutely wasting your time.
I think
And
you
our
can say your
money.
name again.
My name's Jay Dwyer. You guys are absolutely wasting your time and our money. Put that in ChatGPT, let it figure it out if you really want to change the logo. If you want your reputation to look better, don't keep raising our rates. This is a very small community. Go outside, shake people's hands, introduce yourself, meet people. Stop wasting our time and money on this. We shouldn't even be discussing this right now. Don't waste our money on a new logo and hiring somebody to design it. There's like, what, 400 houses here? Live here. Be here year round. That's how you improve your reputation.
Thank you. I saw a hand up here.
Hi, Helen Wilson, resident in lot 82. So I guess what I wanted to say, maybe in a slightly different way than what Jay just said. I agree with the values and like what is communicated in that logo. I also don't think it's a great use of, I mean, if this takes time and money to create a new brand and a new logo, that feels kind of empty, and would rather just see the actions behind those words. So I think the proposal for the new fire department plan is a great example of actually taking community input and listening to the community and doing something that's meaningful. Unfortunately, it does cost more money to homeowners and property owners, also our corporate property owners and so forth. So what I care about the most is actually seeing real ways in which community input is being used to lower our costs and increase incentives for people to come to build houses, buy houses here, rather than disincentives to want to make Kirkwood primary home or second.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Any comments online?
None.
Any comments in the public? Okay. Board discussion, board conversation. So again, I think we could do a couple of options. We do nothing from a logo perspective. We spend no money. And if we wanted to put some of the spirit, I think of what Bob, you had suggested, into more of our collateral in terms of newsletter, our website, we can certainly do that without changing the logo. Or we would ostensibly create the collateral and we could do it ourselves at no cost. And it would be at, using an AI tool or just doing it at Canva or whatever we're doing. Or we could hire someone to go and do something for us.
Yeah.
I will motion that we do make adopt, a change. And, to the community comment, I would simply say that, it seems clear to me that the sentiment, the reaction from the board right off the bat is, if we do this, let's do it in the most cost-effective way. So marketing matters. You see that all around you in the world. It is, as Doug presented the whole thing, if nothing else, it fits hand in glove. Maybe even a logo change is a pretense to deliver again the message that in the last year, some of the things Doug mentioned are examples of KMPUD doing exactly what some of these sentiments that are calling for. And so I'm going to support one of the logo changes. My son has a way of saying, this is going to be an objective take, and then he offers a very subjective opinion. So there's no arguing which one's better. Really, I mean, it's just a matter of opinion whether option 1 or 2 is better. I kind of like the old mountains and the new bold lettering. I think that the 4 new words are very good, and we should make them as big and bold as the design allows. And it also occurs, there may be people in the Kirkwood community, a newsletter might fish out whether a designer could take an idea that, like that, and at some generous or favorable discounted cost, produce the graphics files necessary for the final product. And then implement it the way John described. That'd be what I favor.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with the logo, but I probably wouldn't hire a consultant.
No, not a consultant, just somebody to make it.
Free money.
A free consultant.
Just somebody to.
Or someone in the community who
yeah.
has that time and expertise,
Yeah.
who would be willing to donate
Sure.
it.
Yeah, we have enough people around here, we could
Yeah.
figure that out.
So we could
So
say,
what-
in your letter or in a either in your letter or the newsletter, when you introduce the idea of publicly owned and public service, and offer a one of those designs in that format. If there is a designer who could bring this to life and make it, that'd be the way to do it.
Can't we use one of these options as they are now?
I mean, it's just,
close.
it's just,
it's not good enough.
yeah, you're not gonna scale it to the right.
I think option, the bottom one is option 2 is pretty good looking design.
Yeah, I mean, I think
It's simple and I think it expresses a feeling that customers are important, and I think we've kind of strayed from that a little bit.
so. I would say what I'm hearing, and I'll summarize maybe, and tell me if I'm wrong, which is the board is supportive of option 2 as a theory, but not spending any money on this project. And so if we can either have something that looks like that by someone in the community providing it to us for free, we could go down that route. Or if we use an AI tool to generate it for us and it gives us all of what we need, we can go that route. But at the very least, including that the sentiment of what we're doing can be added without cost to our ratepayers by just including it in our newsletter or.
So is this a communications committee?
This is a communications community project.
Okay.
That's why it said, I think the report said came from communications community.
That's why Doug waited for himself to get off the communications committee to float it.
Working on this for 3 months.
I'm
Thought we've been talking
of
about it for
course. Brought it this far.
So did I summarize the sentiment of the board there fairly effectively? We do not want to hire someone to do anything for this,
Good to do, no money.
but no money. Okay.
Yep.
I don't know if we need to vote on that.
No, it just sounds like we'll return it back to communications committee to further refine this and
Come back to the board when ready, and at the very least,
Yeah.
we can update our website and talk about the sentiment.
sounds good.
Okay. All right, let's go on to 10H, Randy.
Come back here, it's better.
All right, performance reporting. So at the last meeting, we talked about putting the graph for each utility under the chart for each utility. So let me know what you think. We'll start with electric. Electric for the month of October, we did not produce any power at the powerhouse. All of our production was from the ISO grid. As you see here, we had a 20% unidentified system loss, bringing us to 16% year to date. The only thing of note I have there for the month of October is we weren't able to get to the backside to read backside line. Meters back there on the chairlifts, a bit of that would be caught up next time we're able to ski back there. And then the chart below, this shows total electric sold versus days in residence. If we go on to propane, the month of October got a little colder. We used 822,000 cubic feet of propane. That's just delivered from tankers into our tanks here on Loop Road. We saw an unmetered total of 13% for the month, bringing us to 15% year to date. That is higher than in years past. We are still looking into why that is. I don't have an answer at this point. Normally, at the end of every year, we run a plus or minus 5%. So I do expect that to come down throughout the year, but it is not down yet. This graph that you see here is total usage in cubic feet versus temperature as the driver for increased propane usage in the valley.
Brandy, I like this, bringing the charts with the charts with the numbers. Could you refresh memory? I'm not in the ops committee. What days in residence is obviously for residential, but what about ski days and all that? Why is days in residence the right metric?
Days in residence is what we can with the data we have give you.
We have no access to any information on the ski resort.
Yeah,
We do know when people use water.
sure.
And so this is a measure of how many houses per day in each day use some water. So it's an indication of how many people are in residence.
So
It's
these
a
lines are kind of just a reminder that
Well, if usage is down and residency is up, there's something wrong.
right,
So it does provide some useful information.
yeah. I guess so, yeah.
What happened in June? Like,
So that was 20,
Yeah, that was 2022. I don't recall. It may have been when we changed out the regulators and had to flare off part of the propane
That's
tank,
what I
but
was
I
thinking
don't know
too.
that for sure. I could come back and let you know that next time. That's my best guess.
well,
I'll put it on my note for next time.
Well, to that point, since we're reformatting this a little bit,
and sorry, make sure if you find something useful, just put a footnote like we've done in like water leaks and things like that, so that we don't ask the same question every month.
I will, and I will note that the water leak footnote did drop off this month. I just noticed it as I was reviewing, so I'll reintroduce that footnote for both.
I see a water leak asterisk, but yeah, that was the comment I was gonna make, is that as we're, you have an asterisk down there, but
Oh, it's not on my printout. I did it.
but Brandy, exactly that kind of thing. If it's not a big lift, just to start to add a few footnotes to these things, some of which are always there. Like, like as Bob just said, we use days in residence because it is the best and only proxy, whatever. But also when there are aberrations and strange pops, then it's, we'll be asking for 3 years what happened in June on propane. And so having little footnotes here on the graph would be helpful.
Sure.
Speaking on behalf of like communications committee, I tend to think of even these operations report, everything in our package, because it's all public information. It is, in a sense, communications, and even our financial reports I commented on earlier.
All right, if we look at water, for the month of October, we had 510,000 gallons produced at our wells, 21% unidentified system losses, bringing us to 20% for the year. I did have a note here that my footnote was missing, but it looks like it is in the packet. So I'd be happy to increase the number of footnotes so that we can be
Hey,
clear.
Brandy, feel like we can just integrate that into the chart so you don't have to manually type it every month.
Right.
It's not hard, and but yes, if we can integrate our footnotes, that
Yeah.
easier. And then lastly, wastewater for October, influent meter at the wastewater treatment plant was 421,000 gallons. Of that, 66,250 or 16% is unidentified, unmetered usage, which means I water getting into the system. That is down from the month of September where we saw a lot of rain. This time of year, we typically see lower I rates than we do in the spring or in rainy seasons. So that is tracking normally.
I should remember all this, but we do have a target or like a budget for I or electrical unidentified losses. Don't we? And then if we do, shouldn't we have that here on this chart? Because
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I always forget, like, is October when the I starts to get better? That kind of thing, or,
So we have an annual goal for everything except wastewater. And so that is listed in the last line of each chart.
we don't have an goal for I.
But we don't have a goal for I.
Oh.
When we've discussed this in the past, I mean, ideally, as with everything, we're hoping for none. That would be ideal in a brand new tight system. We don't want any water getting in. But we've been battling I for years now and have not come to a conclusion as of yet. And we might still on what we want to shoot for.
And so I will say though, Chris, if you remember at the end of the fiscal year, I'd asked Randy to create a chart that talks about the annual I and annual values, because as we're making investments into sewers and things like that, I would certainly hope on an annual basis, because these are so highly variant based off of the months and the water, that still on an average annual year, I would hope that we would see improvements in all of these places. So that's what was in the packet for operations at the end of the fiscal year, and we will do again at the next fiscal year as well. Because again, monthly, every time we talk about this, it is, hot temperature changes for propane. It's rainy and water and snow melt and temperatures. There's a lot of variability, but on an annual basis, that's our most.
And I'd love to see standing footnotes that say things, or explanatory notes that say things that so people can understand.
I think what you're asking more is like a cover page that is like how to read this document, essentially.
Too.
Yeah, we can talk about that in EFP.
Yeah.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure, go ahead. Let's open up the public comment.
Randy, did I hear right? You said that, Jason Dwyer, you said that 25% of the clean water produced is lost, just disappears?
Well, not 25%. So for the month of October, 21% was our unidentified system losses. Year to date, it's 20%. It's not lost or disappears. We have some facilities that aren't metered, and we've been battling some issues at a well, which required a lot of flushing. But yes, there is a component every year of an amount of water that is not metered. And our goal for that has been historically 15%.
Okay.
And
So-
sorry, before you move on to your next question, I remember asking a question like this in the past where correct me if I'm wrong, but the answer was, I think what Eric Christensen said was the cost benefit of metering that water was not worth it for the purposes of what we do, because we could get a more accurate reading, but paying for those meters or accessing those meters it's just more expensive in the time it would take and the worth it than it is to just note that it is an unmetered water. That was, if I remember that correctly.
Right.
And
As a small business owner, though, if I had 21% of my profits just disappearing, I would really want to start trying to figure out where that money went. Same with the I, right? When was the last time the sewers were cambered?
We've been doing pieces every year. There hasn't been a major full system all in 1 year in several years.
Right. So
But it's a continued project we've been working on. As you recall, the Wintergreen Sewer project that Norberg did. It looked at a specific section of the sewer that was known to be a problem area, and we replaced that last year.
our sewer lines are Swiss cheese.
Well, but so we know that there are issues, which is why we're doing a wastewater master plan, which was to hire people to do cameras of our wastewater system. That's our plan.
The transformer at Sun Meadows 3, the one at the bottom of Chair 2, the one across the street from my house, they all hum like banshees. Are we testing the oil in them? Are we checking the fuses and seeing if the fuses are about to fail? Right? What kind of maintenance can we do? What is the amount of line loss for electricity? Is it above 11%, which is an industry standard?
Yes, it is.
So the whole system, propane, water, sewer, electric, it's Swiss cheese. It's leaking. If we fix those leaks, we stop wasting money.
So what makes you think we're not trying to do that?
Well, you just said you're not even looking into metering it because putting a meter on is going to cost more money, right?
But we did look into it and determined that it
Right,
was.
this wasn't
not
just like a
financially-
random.
No,
Yeah,
I understand, but the point is, you know, you just raised our water rates because we have asbestos pipe that was supposed to be replaced after 40 years. We're now at 50, and there's no. If you have a piece of equipment, you can run it into the ground, or you can change the oil, you can maintain it, you can keep an eye on it. And when I'm hearing these numbers of over 11% on line loss and electricity, and I hear the transformer at the bottom of chair 2 just screaming, right? When I hear 21% of the water that you guys pump out of the ground and clean just disappears, right?
so that I mean,
Maintain the system, and you won't be throwing money away, nor will you be throwing money at large projects that are 10 years overdue to fix the problems.
You're the chair, but Brandy, do you have any corrections that need to be made to that? I mean, 22% of the water that we clean, for example, seems like some misstatements here. I'm no
There are
expert.
some misstatements here. I think that the board has us do performance reporting on an annual basis. I'm sorry, on a monthly basis, because we are trying to keep an eye on the systems and improve our performance, improve our losses. That is challenging. We have a very small staff. We have very high cost. Trevor wants to say something.
yes, I know.
I'm sorry.
Hold
I'm
on,
trying to be patient.
thank you for being patient. I saw your hand up, but
But I think that the board's intent and staff's intent is to do what we can to minimize losses.
Well, and then there's serviceable maintenance, and then there's the lifespan of a piece of equipment.
Sure.
So I would think we're. Somebody's calling to help me. So I would assume we're adhering to maintenance schedules for scheduled maintenance. And then there's other things you get end of life because of you've got a 20-year use life or something, right? And then system losses don't result in a dollar-to-dollar loss. So, I mean, it takes a lot of equipment to produce no electricity or no water. So you get a huge fixed cost. So a 20% loss doesn't mean a 20% hit to the books.
Yeah.
It's much smaller than that. It's the marginal cost.
But it is something.
Is it a
There's
loss?
some, sure.
Is
Yeah.
it a loss?
Loss of, like, if you're losing, well, if you're losing any of the, this is what these reports are showing is I&I for wastewater, losses in water, electricity loss, things like that. Those are all things you want to maintain at the lowest level possible, but they don't result in a dollar for dollar. It's not like your business is, if you had 20% loss in your utility, you're not generating a 20% loss financially. Right? I mean, I think there's a huge amount of fixed infrastructure in place that has to be paid for before any utility is
I
produced.
mean, Jamie's the comment that if 20% of his profits is a small business.
Trevor, you're not in your head. Maybe
Yeah,
you
so-
can articulate it
so
better than
Trevor,
me.
why don't you come to, if you have a comment, another public comment?
I'm Trevor Pisak, East Meadows again. This is going to be my follow-up question to Jason's thing, which is just, it sounded like there sees everything. Like, are we maintaining all this stuff appropriately? I have no opinion about that. But my question was sort of, what's the marginal cost of wasting or leaking 20% of your water? I happen to know almost what it is for electricity, but I think we pay like $800,000 a year to Shell for the power purchase agreement, and only probably been we could probably negotiate on that a little bit for losses or something like that. So 20% on that is like $160,000 out of a budget of $5.5 million or something on electricity. And so, yeah, there's losses, but you have to trade off, I think, is it worth the staff time and the capital expense of going to chase those down and fix those versus this like extra marginal expense of just like eating the loss and saying, what's the actual marginal cost of that? Purchasing the wholesale power, purchasing chemicals and extra operations for the wastewater treatment. So I have no opinion on the maintenance of things, but I just want to sort of ask the question. I don't know if anybody knows what the marginal cost is for all these utilities, but I'm sure it's not a 20% hit on
The marginal
bills
cost
of
of-
customers.
Of water.
Of
Of
water.
water or vector wastewater or electric
I don't
losses.
have that in front of me, but it's a good question and one that we've looked at
Yeah.
in the distant past.
Our water is precious, but the cost of the water itself is the least of the cost of our water operating expense, and our water operating expense is 1/10 of our business as a PUD. So it's important, and I don't want to sound flippant about water loss. The INI, and I'm the last person at this table to even learn what INI stood for, but it's the infiltration of snowmelt and other water into the sewage. That's a shame, and we minimize it because we're treating all this snow water that doesn't need treating. And so the Swiss cheese argument, I may be overstated, but the fact that our INI is higher than we want is true. But it's not as if we're paying for that snow water. It's the opposite. It's leaking into our, we're paying for it in our costs, but we're not like buying snow water.
The
Anyway,
point is you keep raising our rates and every penny should matter. That's what I'm trying to get.
I don't think anyone here disagrees with that, Jay. And I will encourage anyone who's listening or in the call here to attend, say, an engineering operations and planning committee meeting and provide feedback there. We've been doing master plans to identify these things. We've been doing rate studies to follow on those things, to pay for fixes. If you have thoughts or feedback on any of these things, please give them. I welcome it. Hit me directly on this. Y'all know how to contact me. I'll say again, my email address is on the KMPU website. I welcome any feedback. Anything that we can do to lower our costs. I don't think anyone here would disagree that we all want to lower our costs. And INI and paying for these things is not great, but it's a trade-off. Cost benefit of doing all these things. So
San Francisco and all of the communities around it, I'm on the board in Palo Alto Utilities, struggling to keep our water rate increase under 11%. And that's how bad it is in water, just as one example. And that's this year, next year, as far as the eye can see. So it's not as if Kirkwood is alone in facing these kind of increases.
Yep. Okay. Thank you for the
I
comments.
still don't
Thank you
know.
for the questions. I think I heard a couple of things that Brandy we can follow up on. And I think that would be good for us to provide answers to questions that I think hopefully will give you more information about what is the true cost of this. And there's numbers that we should have on hand. I think those are good things to ask and know. Anything else from performance reporting?
What is this exciting new spreadsheet?
All right, so we'll move on to agenda item 10I, which is a revision to the major project update form. You'll notice that we still have major project updates as the next agenda item. This agenda item is not to talk about what the, I would say, content of reporting, for Rick to tell you about all the things that we're doing. I just thought, in my own spirit of trying to be, kind of what, Chris, you were saying here of making it easier to understand what we're working on. I had pushed Bob to have something like this 3 years ago when he was president, and I wanted to take another step on it to try to make it a little bit more clear, at least to me.
Mhm.
And I wanted to give this the opportunity to have the community and the board give feedback on what would be helpful to have in front of you as what I think of as the roadmap of the board and the big items that we have in here. So I made some changes, and I want to get feedback from everyone on them. The major changes are, going back to the conversation we just had. Every one of our services, water, wastewater, electric, and propane, we are working on master plan. We've had recent master plans, and I put the dates of when they are. These are all hyperlinks to them. So if you want to see our master plans, the most recent ones, they are there. Same with rate studies. And then also highlighting with those grouped utilities and areas of service, what we're doing. I'd asked Rick to go through and add items that were on the master plans that we have funded through the rate studies to all be on this list. So that as we're thinking about major projects, when they're going out to planning, design, and bid construction, that you can see them on this list. And then also adding a section at the bottom for our board, because some of the major things that we think about are our capital planning, our budgeting, and our audit, as well as the election of our different, the organization of our seats of the board, which happen every 2 years for the different seats that we have. And so I just want to try to organize this. I added some footnotes in here to amendments to, say, the rate studies, for example. For electric, we did have amendments to them, which actually address some of the questions that were brought up earlier by Trevor. Some of those try to address some of those things. So if you want to see amendments to our ordinance, those are there. And comments that we had received via rate studies and things to consider in the future that we will be talking about, I'm sure, soon for some of these for electric.
I think it's a big improvement. It's great.
Thanks. And I also took it out more years, I would say, too, just so that you can see further out in the future. So yeah, this is a work in progress. We can always change it, but I just thought that this was an opportunity to make this a little bit easier to use. Structurally, is everyone okay with it?
Looks good.
My only recommendation would, or request would be in the legend area, like the color coding. I know what you mean because I've been.
Yep.
But did this blue, red, yellow is basically, this is the phase that the work
Project is in.
thing is in.
Yeah.
It's not altogether clear what gets the green and then what gets the other colors. So that'd be my only little
Okay.
key.
Sure. And just to state it, the thing for green was something that would take some sort of board action typically.
Yeah.
So a rate study or a master plan, or I want to say board action because technically the election of directors isn't a board action.
Yeah.
It's a community action. So I just said action, but that was the idea, is like board votes for the most part on that. And then other things are physical projects that are going through their phasing and when those will anticipate to happen. But I can write that in there too, if that helps.
That's great.
Okay. Moving on then from agenda item 10, we'll move on to the next agenda item on major project updates. So Rick, can you talk about this document now in terms of any updates that you want to give on this?
So, yes, and I'll just run through each department. For water, again, we're in the process of doing the tank level indicators that we mentioned before. That's a phase one. There is a phase two component of that, which will happen next year. It's still in the works. I haven't had an update from the engineers or the contractors on the equipment that they ordered. That's the delays waiting on the equipment. For wastewater, we are currently trying to close the Russ loan. Unfortunately, with the government closure, it put a wrench in the plan. As you recall, we did have to extend our Russ loan until May 1st. We hope to try to bring back this with the notice of completion resolution in January. And then hopefully at that point, we can finalize all the paperwork, and there's a lot of paperwork to close the loan, close our BMO account, and be able to take this off. And we're still retaining Eric Christensen as part of that. He was the one that initiated the loan and worked with Russ, Tanya with Russ, and so we're still going to see some invoicing from Eric on just that component alone. For electric, nothing really to update that on, other than there was an oil switch. Help me out. The component in the powerhouse that we're getting.
The reactor.
The reactor. As you know, we had a reactor that tend to overheat, so we actually did an oil sample of it. This sample really didn't come out complete, so we're going to have a resample of that reactor, which would require a generator run. We're hoping to do that. Hopefully, do we schedule a date yet?
We haven't. I think it's gonna be January after snowmaking in the evening, so that's sort.
Yeah. So know that the results of that reactor may change our capital expenses in the future a little bit. What's the approximate price on that equipment? Do you remember? It was like 18 to 20,000, I think is what I read.
I don't have them.
Anyway, that's what's going on with electric, without getting into the weeds there. For propane, you may notice trucks across from the dumpsters. We're actually installing the budget capital approved project to introduce replaced water bath They just installed it in the last 2 days and hopefully we'll bring that online next week and that'll give us some redundancy, more redundancy with propane. And then a couple other things for manager's report. I'm pleased to announce that the Aqua JPIA, our insurance carrier, recognized us as having a loss ratio of 20% or less in liability, property, and workers' comp claims. And they sent us a very nice certificate, meaning that we're doing a pretty good job keeping our losses down. So we appreciate that. However, I should note, we seem to get this letter every year, so I'm not sure how much that weight that is, but again, we've got a good relationship with our insurance company. And then finally, and I'm gonna put Chris on the spot. I got an email from Chris Tucker about some fraudulent.
Sorry, hold on. Have you moved on past
I
major
kinda
projects?
jumped into manager's report.
So
Sorry.
let's finish off major projects.
We'll just leave that at Chris just sent a fraudulent email and
Yeah.
come back to that later.
Going back to liabilities and yes,
Leave that in there.
So nothing else from me.
nothing else from it. Any questions from the community or the board on major projects? Okay, thank
Sorry.
you. All right, let's move ahead to the general manager's report, please. So what you just said
So
about.
what I just said, yeah. But also something about an email scam. Did you want to talk about that, Chris? I thought that was important.
No, someone said earlier that we do get a surprising lot of spam, but one came that really seemed worse than usual. I can't remember what it was, Rick.
It was
it
very targeted
fake bill?
email about, it
It
was
was an
invoice
invoice
for it was called Kirkwood Snow Removal Service.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So it's a very targeted,
Yeah.
like really, there are different terms for like
Devious.
phishing versus spear phishing. Like it was a very targeted attack.
I just thought it was
Yeah.
bad enough compared to what we get ones from Ford financing and weird stuff, but this one looked like it had some insight into our business and our customer list.
Right. So this was something that, the district does have a cyber plan where we test our employees, our board, of course. But this is the first time I've heard of an outside scammer trying to basically solicit money via Zillow with our name in it. And maybe not our name, but with Kirkwood Snow Removal. So this was an invoice sent to one of our homeowners in East Meadows, I believe. So maybe something the communications could talk about, putting in the next newsletter, just to be wary of.
And just to remind everyone that unless it's from kmpd.com,
Exactly.
it's not us.
Anyway, I just thought it'd be important to bring that up.
Thanks, yeah. Mhm.
And that concludes my manager report.
All right.
If there's any questions,
Any questions from the community,
and none from the community.
the board? Okay, let's move on to operations report.
All right, so as Rick mentioned, the vaporizer install is finished up with the third-party contractor. We'll be testing, hopefully getting that into service next week.
Is that the one that creates redundancy or is? Yeah,
It is.
not the
It's
replacement.
the third
Yeah.
vaporizer that was scheduled for installation this fiscal year. So we're very happy that they were able to get it ordered and installed before winter. In the field, our crews have been taking advantage of the wonderful weather and doing concrete work. In the last week, we've done G5, which are the valve cans in the road. We've been replacing ones of those that were broken, including one on the end of Merrill, which the ground had shifted to the point where we could not operate the water valve. So that's been fixed. We also put in a new collar on the water valve near the water main break over on Loop Road. And we're doing bollards on additional fire hydrants. So as long as the weather holds, we'll continue on this route. We are fully staffed in snow removal. They were able to do a small amount of training during the last snowfall. That will continue as soon as it snows more as far as the actual equipment training. They are doing roadway familiarization with the contracts. And then we're also giving people time off as we can because it's not snowing right now. we'll continue that balance until it hopefully snows a lot and we put all these guys to work. On our certifications for wastewater, I am happy to report that we have made some progress there. 3 of our wastewater operators have gotten their operator and training certificates. And we have 1 operator who's scheduled to take the next level exam in January. So that continues on a good note. And then the last thing, you might have already heard, but on a community note, our operators here are members of the community. We're well aware of that. And I'm happy to report a holiday happy note that our powerhouse operators found a long lost dog recently this week that had been lost for several weeks. Contacted the homeowner and they drove up from San Jose to pick up the dog.
Wow.
And everybody was really happy to be reunited right before the holidays. So
Wow.
for what it's worth.
The coyotes didn't get them.
They didn't, and apparently he was trailing a long leash for several weeks.
Where
So
was he?
Coyotes.
Where
were
was
pretty
the dog?
active this week.
on Kirkwood Meadows Drive, they picked him up.
There was a sighting potentially at Pickett's Junction.
That's crazy.
It was like a husky.
Size. Anyway, so that's all I've got for operations, unless there's any questions.
Thanks.
No, thank you. Any other, before you run away, any community questions? Board questions? All right, thanks, Brandy. All right, let's move on to standing committee reports. Let's start with finance, John.
Nothing to add.
Let's go to EOP, Peter.
We met on November 12th, and our next meeting is next week. And there's still a lot of interest in trying to find a way to spend the public benefits charge instead of having it just sit there in the bank account.
Okay. No. Communications, we talked about one of the topics, which was the branding logo. A couple other things to highlight that I have in the report, just website ADA compliance. There are some changes that need to happen, and this will come as up in IT and cybersecurity as well, but just some changes that need to happen to our website. And I think staff is going to take an opportunity to think about how some other things can be a little bit more community and customer focused and easy to understand as a part of some of the requirements to be more compliant with our ADA laws. Other than that, there are some standing items around sort of like FAQs and things like that to review those to make sure that they're up to date. That's a recurring item that the committee is taking on after we started that last year and published our FAQs, which I remind our community members, there is a large number of FAQs for each of our services on kmp.com. Encourage you to look there if you have any questions. That's it for communications. Personnel, we did not meet. IT and cybersecurity.
Nothing to report.
Okay. And LAFCO did not meet. So that's it for standing committees. For temporary advisory committees, this would be the electric rate study temporary advisory committee. So I'll look to Bob and Chris on that.
Chris and I and Rick and Brandy started the process. We'll have something to report in January. So I started the process.
Okay, great. And then we'll move on to agenda item 16, general board discussion. I had two things I wanted to discuss here. Does anyone else have anything else before I bring my stuff up? Okay, so going back to a little bit of earlier in the meeting, we talked a lot about committees and committee assignments. And one of the things that, at least as long as I've been on the board, it's been one of the sentiments that we have had is that committees should only work on topics that the board has given direction that those committees work on. And so I want to make sure that as we rotate here in terms of some of our seatings and positions, and certainly hearing the comments, some of the comments that we heard today, what I would like to propose and get people's feedback on is that each committee chair comes forward to the January KMPD board meeting with a roadmap of topics that they think that they would like to be their committee to discuss over the next 6 to 12 months. Just in that way that the board can get in, the community can provide feedback and we can say, yes, we think this is worth, go down the line of the committees that you're chairing here, this is worth the committee's time to do that. Just so that we can get a sense of that. And then that way the board can say, yep, this is a good idea or not. And then also we have some, visibility to our community of here's what we're going to be talking about in these committees. So that's my thought. And I welcome feedback, but I would like us to see us do that.
It's a good idea.
Yes, President, as you order it,
Yeah,
I agree.
Finance has less variability.
Understood.
There's
And-
kind of like a huge pile of
But you have,
every single month, right?
right, no, but you have audit, you have other things, you know, there are things that come
Yeah,
together,
there's,
so.
that's every year. Yeah,
Right.
there's not, what I said is there's not a lot of variable work.
Right.
There's a huge amount of fixed work.
Agreed. So that's why I don't know if every committee has the same.
Yeah, because I've been on planning before and you've got a lot more experimentation.
And so I would say, for example, Chris, you gave a bunch of feedback, you know, going back to finance, you gave a bunch of feedback on how you think finance documents can be maybe easier for our community and ourselves to read. I recommend that the two of you talk about that in finance and say, if you want to have a task of finance is to work through how we do our financial reporting to amend things, then bring that as a roadmap item that you could consider for us doing. Similar for EOP, we got some comments on understanding the marginal costs, our INI, we understand some of our charting.
Well, I think that has to be put in the context of what the committee's responsibilities are then.
Okay.
Is you don't want to have, you have to look at what the overall scope and responsibility of the committee is. Make sure that's covered before you take on additional projects.
Sure.
So you don't want to
We
have,
can review our charters.
you don't want to have things. Low priority items get to the top of the list.
Agreed. And so your roadmap can be prioritized as well.
Yeah.
I-
So I think if you're gonna do suggestions on new projects or something for committees, then you have to revisit the charter.
Yeah, and I think I welcome that as well. So if the committees want to review their
No,
charters.
it's necessary. I don't want to talk about optional new projects. I need to say, this is what we need to get done because the plate's already really full.
All I'm saying is I'd like to have an agenda in January where we can have this discussion in more detail and you could, say that, and this is what you want to do, and that's what you want, like, that's fine. Like, I'm perfectly amenable. I just want to have a plan. I want every committee chair to have a plan, know what we're working on, and we have some clarity. We know what we're doing over the next 6 to 12 months. That's all I want. And it can be exactly what happens today. It could be not that. That's all I'm asking. I'm good?
Yep.
Okay. The second thing is something that I started doing with communications. I haven't been doing it with personnel, but as the chair, writing a report for the board packet every month for our committee, or every time it meets, I should say, because not every committee meets every month. Again, not every committee has the same level of, finance. You're in the packet every month. So
This was a light month, but normally finance is about 80% of the board package, so it's
Right.
well documented what we're doing, right?
it is, I would say though, any highlights of, I think you brought up one thing today that, was in the result, but not that was about the change that you made about,
Advertising.
snow
snow.
removal, like things like that, we can summarize those things, EOP communications. Again, I'm throwing it out there. I will, as chair of personnel, I have not been doing it for personnel. I've only been doing it for communications, but I will start writing those reports for personnel and summarizing them. I think it's helpful for myself as the chair of these committees to be able to look back at them personally, and remember what we talked about. It's an open question. I don't want to create a ton of work for folks, but I just think it's good to memorialize some of this stuff as much as we can. But I'm open to suggestions if no one wants to do that.
Well, speaking for comms, I'll try to keep doing what you're doing in comms and doing what you're suggesting, this monthly one pager. As a member of finance, I would just say that we have the monthly variance report, which I'd like to, as I said before, there are ways it could get, better and richer in explanation, but it is the monthly report. So.
Well. Anything else? EOP? wanna do-
I agree.
Okay, Bob, anything? No?
Yeah.
No, thanks. All right, well then, I will not mandate that as a requirement,
No, don't.
but what I will mandate is that you come with a roadmap in January with a plan. Yep, how about that?
With a charter.
With your charter, any amendments that you'd like to see made to the charter, because we did make, was that 2 years ago that we did that? We did make a bunch of amendments to the charters. We changed our committee structures, obviously. with EOP.
Where are those located?
You go to kmpu.com and go to the committees tab. You will see them in there. They're linked on each of the
I also find them a quick Google, KMPUD comms
we were
charter.
there before. Now that links to something else,
They're all
actually.
easy to find.
The charter for finance is not what's linked, actually.
That's what I Googled actually.
The charter is if you click one of the links, you'll see the charter. You'll get there eventually.
Okay.
It's
Sounds like
So-
conference working on a website.
So this is one of those things again that we've talked about with making it easier to access some of these things. So if you click on about committees and then you click on finance, it will take you to a link, and then the top link is the charter. If you go to say EOP though, it actually just is or was it EOP or is it the communications? One of the two, I think it was. EOP just takes you to the charter. So Rick is nodding his head for those not watching the camera. So we understand that we'll clean that up, but those are all on our website and we will look at them and again, come forward in January with a plan and any amendments to your charter. Great. All right, with that, we'll adjourn. Thank you everyone for participating today. Appreciate it. And we'll see you on January 2nd at 2 p.m. for our next regular meeting. Have a good evening.
January 2nd, yeah.